I've been in hospitality for a long time. I went to school for hotel management and waited tables for years. I was doing music at the same time. I started to realize that I needed something that I love music, but I looked around the music industry and I saw a lot of, rich people, but not really people that were wealthy. All the wealthy people that I knew were in real estate, most likely, or some type of big business adventure. But I started seeing how well they were doing. And I was spending so much time learning that I got to the point now that I was like, man, they're getting these deals. And a lot of them are coming because I'm doing the work. And, I'm also getting paid, but I'm not getting paid like they are.
People, I think that's a mistake. If you have no idea, if you're from Fort Lauderdale, and back then, I can tell you, back in 2012, 13, and 14, a lot of people were talking about investing in Jacksonville, Southern Georgia, but I'm not from there. Never been there. Didn't know anything about that. So although the entry point was less, I stuck to my backyard. Now, the next thing I want to talk about, because you brought it in, and I truly love it. Now, you have an interesting concept, right? Because on your property, you have different models, right? You have the geodome, and we're going to talk about the glass house right now. And then what else do you have in addition to those two structures?
Right now we have that and then the main house, but I co-host a few other semi-unique places, but nothing like those. But we're building an A-frame pretty soon. We're already in permitting talks there, and then we're going to build a tree house after that. And every time I build something, especially in the same area, I want something different because I want people to come. I've had so many people stay in my geodome and stay in my mirror house and are ready to stay in my A-frame because I like building a different experience for them. And there's definitely positives. I learned so much building my geodome. I would not make the same mistakes I made the first time, and I would save money if I built another one, which we may eventually in a different area. But I would rather have different structures and spend a little bit more to get new structures on the property, because just the marketing efforts are so much easier. Like even on my social media page, if I'm always posting geodomes only, it's going to get old. People are like, those videos are going to flatline over time. But we launched our geodome, took off on social media. We launched the mirror house. It took off because it was all different. People hadn't seen in my area those kind of things. And so I'm just it goes back to my creativity from music and just everything, that I love providing different types of stays, and I don't want to be redundant in the same area. My goal is to build geodome, build a mirror house, build an A-frame, take those same three properties and go to a different part of, Arkansas or Oklahoma or Texas or somewhere else, and take that same stuff I learned, but I don't want it in the same market that I'm already in, because I just, and I know people that crush it with that model, and it's just everybody, the thing I love about real estate is everybody's model can be different and it could still work for them. But just in my own personal preference, I thought having different structures was going to work, marketing wise, and, to this day, it's worked great. We have like 50,000 followers on social media that have crushed it because we're able to keep promoting new style places and, build up the hype around them.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you. So, I get into a lot of debates with people and clients when they're building their resorts or their areas. I tend to agree with you. So I multiple clients, and they feel like it's better to have the same model, right? So I'll go back to my friend Doug with Timbercraft. Now he builds them, but he built the same model. So he has 4 of the same cottages in one location.
Yep.
Looks great, phenomenal. But I think if he would have went with a different, 4 separate different models, I think he would have done better. Now, couldn't prove it.
Yeah.
I'm using you now as proof of concept,
Yeah.
right? Because I haven't built that yet. I haven't done it. We're going to do that in my Georgia property. I'm going to have, just like you, I'm going to have the geodome. I'm going to have Doug's tiny cottage.
Nice.
I'm going to have the mirror house, and
Nice.
I'm going to have a tree house. Now,
Nice.
in Colombia, we have which I do a lot of short-term rentals in Colombia as well, which was my first experience with a
Oh, wow.
geodome. And I want to go, don't let me forget. I
Okay.
want to go back to what you said, that you learned some lessons that you wouldn't do if you build another one. Uh, but to go back on that concept of having different structures. So in Colombia, we have a tree house. We actually went and built multiple in one location. This is where I say that hindsight being 2020, and why I agree with your concept is because, for example, on that particular property, we have 7 tree houses, and we don't have high occupancy on all 7, right? Uh, so in peak season, they're all rented out. But
Hmm.
when we have the slow season, I may have 2 out of the 7 rented out. Now,
Hmm.
I firmly believe if we had something different to offer, that probably they will all get booked, because, and more importantly, as it relates to marketing, it's much easier, much better. Like you just talked about, if you're constantly promoting and showing the same thing, people get tired of it. But when you can shift and you have
Yeah.
a treehouse, a geodome, I'm not a fan of the York tents
Yeah.
either. Um, like you said, they they don't they don't give that guest experience of being it, because you can't see outside. The windows are
No.
tiny. I'm not a big fan of those, but you can create. And I have seen the canvas tents that you can open up,
Mhm.
but that's going to be region and weather specific. I couldn't
Yep.
do that in certain areas. But anyways, going back to your concept, I agree with you, and I'm glad you did it.
Yep.
And I'm interested to see when you expand with your A-frame, because that's one of the structures we're going to put on my Georgia property, is going to be one of the A-frame houses.
Nice.
Um, and now let's talk real quick about your glass house, because I think that is phenomenal. Tell me what got you. How did you learn about it? Why did you get it? And tell us your ROI on that.
Yep, it's actually probably a unique story, but this just goes to proof of concept and networking, and never saying, always saying yes to stuff. So I had the Geodome. We hadn't even launched our Geodome yet. It was getting built. We were in January. We didn't launch till May, as all construction always is delayed for a million different reasons. But around January, I was like, okay, like the Geodome's getting there. I want to start planning for the second spot. And I initially thought treehouse, that's, I was like, I'll build a treehouse. I'll have a little more capital maybe. But I started researching some things, and I came across a company that's called Oud Mirror Houses. And they were from Estonia, which is in Eastern Europe. They were just starting to make their way to the US. There's probably 60 or 70 of them in all across Europe. This same company was just now starting to come to the US. I was like, okay, well, I saw it and I was like, that's amazing. I need to find out more about it. I started researching the company. I found out that they were in Mexico building some of the one. There was like 2 of them, I think, in America, one in Vermont and one in Tennessee. I saw the one in Tennessee is how I even found out about them. Just doing my research on YouTube and things like that. And I saw that they were in Mexico City, but then I reached out to them and I was like, hey, this is my name's Garrett. I'm building this glamping site, and I was, seeing, what products y'all had and availability and all that. I started researching more, and I got selected into they have a very, very exclusive partnership basically that can be offered, to where if you have a site that you've put a lot of money into, they will offer to give you the mirror house for a return on a revenue percentage each month. And for me at the time, I got lucky with that, because they've even told me this before. It's a great company. I love working with them. We have a lot of big plans going forward, but they told me, like, I got selected, one, because I put a lot of money already into my site, so I had some skin in the game. I have a hotel management background, but they were moving their factory to Houston, Texas, and I was just happened to be right there. So they kind of used me as a guinea pig to show, like, the profitability of their site on somebody that's running a real glamping site. So we got in talks, took some different negotiations and things like that to get everything set up, but we eventually landed a deal that we agreed to, where they provided the mirror house and a mirror sauna for me. and I would give them the revenue percentage each month. That launched, my Geodome launched in May. We finished the Mirror House project in October and launched it. The Mirror House is by far one of the best things I've ever done. I love it. It's super efficient. I wish I would have had the finances to buy it outright, because giving a revenue percentage each month isn't my favorite thing. But at the same time, I wouldn't have a Mirror House if I hadn't took that model. And so sometimes you have to explore options out there that may not be your favorite thing in that moment, but because of that Mirror House adding so much virality to our site, and is going to be able to push, my A-frame and all these other things I'm building, I've learned so much from it that, and in the partnership with Oud is great as well. They've been operating as, they have their own hotel space, which they operate these Mirror Houses as like a hotel of sorts. And they gave me a lot of insight on things. They told me about all their data that they have about like guests and what we can provide that actually makes sense. And it's just so many good things. So that's what's good about working with a partner like that, is that they were able to provide that. But I wouldn't have been able to get to that next place, because these things are hard to get financing for, especially when I'm trying to prove the concept. And now that we've proven it, and we built this great relationship with a company like that, which is why I'm so bullish on putting yourself out. That they found me from, I found them and they found me about the same time, because I was making a ton of YouTube content as well. And so that's why I'm a big fan of putting yourself out there and not being afraid of like saying yes to things, because I took this meeting not really knowing what I was getting into, but I was like, I'll take it and let's learn more. And I think we're going to make 115,000 in gross revenue just on the Mirror House, which it's 221 square feet. So if you want to analyze what that is per square foot return, it's pretty staggering. Even like touching on what we were talking earlier about big houses versus unique experiences. The house I have at the front of the property is a 2,100 square feet, 4-bedroom, 3-bath. Nice house. We have a few small amenities, but we haven't put a ton into the outdoor spaces there, which we need. We're working on it. But that place only grossed 50,000, the first year. But the Mirror House is 10 times smaller and doubled that revenue. And costs about $50 or $60 a month in electricity and certain things like that. So it's pretty tremendous, the revenue on that property, but it's all because it's a unique experience. It's the second people see it, they're blown away by the picture of it. And then we added the outdoor amenities to make people instantly book it. Like they see it on Airbnb or even our direct booking site, which we do a ton of direct bookings as well. They see it and they go, okay, I need to learn some more because that's really cool. And then when they see like, oh, wow, they have an outdoor bathtub, they have an outdoor sauna, they have a fire pit area, they have, seating, and they have a couple trails, and they instantly go, okay, this seems like something I will never be able to experience anywhere else. And I'm willing to pay top dollar. And our occupancy rate is, I think 88%. And we're I think our ADR is $428, I think, per night.
Wow.
And this is constant. I think even this whole month. I think for a while we were about 100% booked, which I'm never a big fan of, because that means you're probably slightly underpricing it. And we kind of tinkered with the pricing a little bit, and now we're sitting about 85 to 90%, which is the sweet spot I personally like to be in. And it does amazing. I couldn't say I say nothing but very positive things about the Mirror House. It's been one of my favorite relationships, and I would buy that property over 5 or 6 times and put them out there where any other property that I get, just because I love those. And it's just the unique experience and the unique build is all that matters. And it goes back to the windows thing and all that. That place is awesome because it is nothing but windows, basically. And we're talking about like even like my A-frame design, I was like telling my architect, I was like, I don't care about the interior that much. Like, I'll make it nice, but I just want to spend the most on the windows. That is my biggest thing. I will go broke on these windows to make it feel like it's seamless within the indoor outdoor experience, which that's what I love about the Mirror House, and it's a great company.
No, I love that. And there's a couple of things that I want to address what you just mentioned, right? Number one, we're going to talk about I touched on it and you touched on it, and it's the ROI versus something big versus something small, right? Now, is this trend going to stay with us for a while? I don't know, but I can tell you that from 2021 all the way to present day, smaller properties that only hold max two to four people,
Hmm.
far outdo properties that hold more by
Yep.
far. The
I
data
think
tells us
I think
that's where it's at.
I think 4 people is the sweet spot. Like
Yeah,
everywhere, like that's the one thing I like. I love my mirror house. I wish it was just slightly bigger because I think 4 people. And talking to all my friends in the
yeah,
industry from all over, a lot of people agree. If you can build a place that can, couples would like to go to, but it also could hold 2 couples if you really wanted to. That is going to be the sweet spot, I think, in a lot of markets. Not every market, there's some that are super vacation, like big, big family houses that do well, but very most likely a lot of market and just getting the entry point to get into these type of properties is going to be much easier if you get something that is 2 to 4 people. Is 4 people is the sweet spot.
no, my data tells me the same. So not only does the data that I get from Key Data, from AirDNA and Price Lab, but also my personal data. Right, we
Hmm.
have over 3,200 properties under management, and I
Wow.
can tell you that studios, 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms far outdo anything more. And
Yep.
my properties aren't very touristy area. I'm in South Florida.
Well,
I'm in Spain, Portugal, Colombia, very touristy
wow.
places. And by far, those properties far outdo all the other ones. And I'm not even going to, because we don't have time to go into operating costs
Oh yeah.
and insurance and stuff like that. I'm not going to touch
Sure.
on that yet because we don't have time for that. But that's why I'm a big fan of these glamping areas, these unique experience, etc. So we talked about the tiny house. The glass house. Let's go back to the geodome, and this is more from a personal perspective because, like I said, we have one in Colombia that does very well. I'm doing another one in Georgia. But tell me, what would you have done different if you're going to do another one?
Um. So I love my geodome. I always hate having to say this, but it's like the one thing I think I do regret a little bit, and even what I was saying earlier, like I would take it to different markets. The one thing I do not like about my geodome is it does not really provide much equity into my property, which my main goal in some of these properties I'm building is to build them, get them stabilized, extremely operational, get the operating income as high as I possibly can, and then exit out of it. Those assets, the geodome, like cash flowing as a business asset, it's great because it cash flows great and other things like that. But from an equity standpoint, it does not. And the mirror house is debatable, and that's like we'll definitely have to do a part 2 soon because I'm sure we could go on for hours about these nuances. But
Yeah.
the mirror house, the equity, that's debatable. We could talk about that later. But the geodome, no appraiser in a residential style is going to be able to add value to that place. But from a business perspective, it's great. But if you're looking to just build a place and eventually maybe sell it as a one-off short-term rental or something along those lines, I would build something like a unique cottage, as you said, or I like to call them cabins now. That's like the
Right.
term I pretty much use exclusively because I see Airbnb uses that as one of their main categories that they push. Is the particular word cabin. So I would build a cabin that is extremely unique, like an A-frame or something like that, but that has a little more equity value to it. So that way, on my exit, it can just be even higher because that has an equitable asset to it that isn't even debatable. Like I think the geodome is an equitable asset, but other people might disagree. But because I have utilities and it's a fixed structure and things, but again, it's a canvas tent in the end. So. Yeah, I love my geodome, and would I build more? I probably would build a couple. It was just really hard, and then like there's so many nuance, like keeping the outside clean, like the canvas of it, is one of the hardest things I've ever done. It's actually kind of shocking how hard it is to keep that white canvas cleaner, especially like the longer it goes. So I think I guess my one piece of advice, if you are building a geodome, is to probably look into painting it with. There's a thing called thermoshield paint.
Number shield, yeah.
Yep,
That's what
and
we did. Our geodome in Colombia we did that right off the bat.
does that help with the exterior, like the cleaning of it and things?
It,
Have you noticed that?
it greatly helps with that.
See,
It
I would
all
that.
It also
That's a
helps
mistake
with
I made.
energy consumption.
Well, that's my second thing I was going to get it into, and I'm sure Columbia, you have some really good insight on this. Like we struggle. Like I didn't buy the $8,000 liner. There's an insulation liner that I bought my dome from Pacific Domes. I didn't buy it instantly. I have an AC unit inside, and I was like, oh, we'll be fine. Like it's a smaller dome, and we have a 2-ton AC unit. Those domes will get they're not they're amazing how they do control temperature the best they can. But in August in Houston, Texas, it's going to get pretty hot in there, even with an AC unit. So I had to put a portable AC unit on the other side to balance it. And we finally broke down and spent the $8,000 on the liner, which was one of the best purchases I've ever made. That liner was amazing. Like anybody that is buying a geodome, it doesn't matter what area you're in. Like if you can afford that liner that company is selling to you, it's a great investment because our energy costs has went down some, but just the guest experience has went up tremendously. We didn't have, like the first year we launched, we had a couple cancellations in August when they got there because it was like 80 something degrees in that geodome. And, most people were fine. Most people went outside and they still enjoyed it, but there's going to be a couple people that it bothers them and, you just got to deal with it. And then when it got winter, like, Houston's not very cold, but there was a few months, like even, 32 degrees, 30 degrees. And people inside were like, yeah, it got kind of cold in there. Like, even with the heater that provided well. So I would definitely paint it with ThermoShield paint. I think I made that mistake. I should have done that. And I would have either bought the liner first or I don't, like I've tried different tricks to make it cooler inside. Like I put, the canopy tents over top of it. And I did a few other things to like stop it, but they, like high wind would bring them down and I'd have to go up to the glamp site and, like re-put them up on these high, I'm on a ladder, like trying to hang these canopy tents across of them. But I wish I would have bought the liner first. And I also wish I would have done the ThermoShield. I think those are two big keys, especially in a warmer climate, is going to help and keep the exterior clean. Cause that was something that really has bothered me is it's hard to keep clean. And I think the ThermoShield paint would have been a good solution to that for me.
Yeah, it would have. And so ours in Colombia, we're in La Zona Cafetera, which it's the same. We call it almost like internal spring. We're very fortunate. The weather's it stays in the 70 year round.
Oh,
so
wow. That's amazing.
We don't get the extreme cold. So we don't have the liner because we don't get the extreme cold and we don't get the extreme heat.
Perfect.
The other thing, we're like it's not a rainforest, but very similar to it. So we have a lot of trees that actually cover the sides of it, so it doesn't get really direct sunlight except for the actual skylight.
Nice.
When it comes up, but we don't have that issue. But I'm thankful that we got the paint on it because, doing my research on it, that's one of the things that everybody talked about, how difficult it is to keep that thing clean.
Yeah.
So we don't have that issue now. But sticking to the geodome, because you said there's stuff that would have saved you more money. What specifically was it? Just the energy cost of it, or is it something else?
So I think the two things that I made mistakes on money wise is I wish I would have. I didn't know about like how the geodome really like fixated to a deck because when I bought the dome from Pacific Domes, they only had one video online that they had this an older way that they used to fix the domes to like a deck. And it was a little different and it threw me off. But then when I got the dome, actually they had reinvented how they do it to now where you can directly bolt the dome into your deck structure. So I built, when I worked with my contractor, and I did a lot of the work myself, but I also had a contractor do some of the heavy stuff. They built a deck platform that was fit for the dome. And then I built a separate deck where the hot tub and stuff went. I wish I would have just built one massive deck and put the dome on it. And that would have saved me costs for quite a few different reasons. I wish I would have known that and done that. And then I also think, like I designed the inside of the dome myself, but I wish I would have maximized. It's tough because I wish I would have maximized the space a little better inside of my dome. I think I would have saved a little more on cost. And I spent a lot of money on my bathroom, which people love my bathroom. I think I could have probably done that a little cheaper and still got, because I got high end tile. Like I went all out on the bathroom because I knew it was gonna push a lot of people to come glamping because they're so worried about it. You know, like being in the middle of nature and not having the luxuries of their home. But I wish I would have probably spent a little less on the bathroom because it goes. And I spent more on the outdoor amenities. Like I spent more on the inside because I wanted it to be a little more luxurious. And I think looking back, I could have saved some money there, put it into the outdoor amenities, and I probably could have even raised, got a higher ADR at this point, which is, we're still adding outdoor amenities, and that's always something you can work on. But those are the two things, and we've already kind of touched on that. Like, I wish I would have spent a little less on the indoor and a little more on the outdoor, and I wish I would have planned the design a little better. I kind of just winged it on my own, and it worked out, but I those things I could have learned better. And if I built another dome, which is still a possibility, depending on the area, I would definitely take advantage of those and save at least 10 to 15,000 on the build.
Awesome. So, I mean, we're going a little over, so I'm going to try to close this down a little bit, but I got a few more questions on the geodome. Number one, what size geodome do you have? You have the 20 foot?
The 7 meter? It's 426 square feet. I think it's 24. I always draw a blank. 426 square feet. And I went a little smaller than I wanted to. I initially was going to get the 700 to 800 square foot one.
That's a 24. So they have the,
yep.
So they have the 16, the 20, and the 24. So you got the 20.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have the 20. Did you build the bathroom in the structure, or did you build the bathroom outside the structure?
Built it in the structure.
In the structure, yeah. See, I did it outside the structure.
Yeah, and there's pros and cons to both of those too. So like, there's pros and cons to both of those, and I think both of them have really good models that can work totally fine with that. But I kind of wanted the bathroom inside just because I didn't want guests to have to walk outside. But I think also maybe having one big open room would have probably saved me cost and done a few things. It's the thing with building these things. There's so many pros and cons to everything we talk about. It's like each one is like, both of those would have been good options, and both of them have their issues with them too. So
yeah, I mean, again, I think it's more, and this is an important lesson for you guys. It's always going to be a decision based on where you're building it, right? Like, for example, for me, it works to do it on the outside because my climate never gets cold and never gets hot. Yeah. So, if somebody has to get up in the middle of the night, and we build it really right next to it. So you walk out the front door and the bathroom is right there, but we did it I wanted it outside. But if I were building this in areas like Texas that it gets 30 below, somebody gets up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, that's a different story, right? You don't want that. And the way I build my outdoor bathroom is so just for people to vision this. In fact, I'm going to put some pictures of it, but to give you a vision, my outdoor bathroom is truly like outdoors. So each geodome is super private. No one can see. You can walk around naked if you want. It's super private. So the way we did the bathroom, although it does have some privacy, it is open air. So the shower is open air. The bathroom itself is open air. So we really saved a lot of money.
Super smart.
Yeah, on the
and you're adding to the experience too. Like my outdoor bathroom and my outdoor shower, even though I have an indoor one at the Mirror House, the outdoor bath and shower, they crush it online. And like I wish I would have took the route you did, because that I think that is the right route. Like, now that I've known more, I think putting it outside and building a private but still outdoor kind of area, it adds to the experience. It adds to the, just the vibe of the place. So I think you absolutely nailed it with that, for sure.
Yeah, I just like now in my property in Georgia, we don't think we're going to do the outdoor one for that reason, because in Georgia it gets hot in the summer, but it gets, believe it or not, it gets really cold in the winter. Like we're building there. I mean, it was last week, it was in the 30s the entire week.
No.
So that took, like, again, in the middle, I pictured myself having to go to the bathroom in the middle of the night and walking outside. It gets kind of chilly.
Yeah, fair enough.
So we're going to probably, if you don't mind, soon we'll have a part 2.
Yeah, absolutely.
But let me close with a couple of important questions here that I really want to touch before we close this out, and that's going to be on Airbnb the company,
Hmm.
right? So like I'm sure you, I don't know if you noticed it. Like I hate using the term Airbnb. I always, because we're not in the Airbnb business. We're in the
Yeah.
short-term rental business.
Yeah.
Airbnb is a company.
Yeah.
So it, being in the industry as long as I have seen that Airbnb when it took off, mainly 2016, 17, and 18, but specifically in 2018, it really became a game changer. But tell me, I mean, you got into it right at that time frame. So this may be a difficult question for you to answer, but what would you say is Airbnb's impact on this industry?
I mean, it's honestly the biggest game changer, I would say. Vacation rentals and seasonal rentals, they've been around for quite a while, but they didn't hit their popularity till Airbnb kind of brought it to mainstream. And it's kind of like, it's one thing I noticed doing a lot of content with short-term rentals is when you say short-term rentals, people are like, huh? Like what exactly? It doesn't do as well because that term isn't as synonymous as Airbnb is with short-term rentals. It's kind of like with Uber, with ride hailing and, things like that. It's like you think of, catching a ride, you're like, oh, I'm gonna call it Uber. And even if you don't use Uber. So I think just bringing that mainstream to the space and just what they like booking.com has been around forever, Verbo's been around forever or longer, but what Airbnb did with technology and software and just like how they push, and a lot of it was the host too, as far as like pushing the limits with really cool unique stays. I think that opened eyes to a lot of people of like what exactly would work in this industry and what will work for the foreseeable future. And so there's a lot of people have a lot of negative things to say about Airbnb. I'm a pretty big advocate for Airbnb, even though I do a ton of direct bookings. I think Airbnb shook up the industry in a great way. It also, like a lot of things became oversaturated when you're, just like we talked earlier with regular condos. But being able to provide these type of experiences and having just an insane amount of guests that are eyeballs on properties. They've done all we're paying for when we pay our host fee and things like that to Airbnb is the amazing marketing they have brought to the industry. And so I'm a big proponent of direct bookings, but Airbnb I think has brought this to the mainstream and to where that this isn't just a trend of like this is going to continuously grow with demand, and all the data shows and all the year-end reports from AirDNA and beyond. It is showing that like this unique stay space is going to continually to rise, and Airbnb is the leader of that, and also like perpetually pushing that forward. Even though Booking.com and all them are now starting to be on that train as well too. I get a pretty good amount of Booking.com. I think they call them alternative experience or alternative accommodations or something
Alternative
like that.
accommodation, yeah.
Yeah.
And Brian Chesky hates that. He hates.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah, he hates when you say Airbnb is alternative accommodations. It's not. But that's a couple of interesting things there. I agree with you that Airbnb has been a big game changer to the industry, both on the positive and negative side, right?
Yeah.
Mainly on the positive in terms of giving people like you and I an opportunity to really do well in this industry. I credit that to Airbnb. Now, I'm a big critic of Airbnb. There's a lot of things that I criticize them on. I don't hate them for it because they're a business, and this is the part that people need to understand. They are in business for them.
Yep.
They're not in business for me. They're not in business for Garrett. They're in business for them. So as long as that path is clear, then we shouldn't have a problem with Airbnb. And I'm crystal clear in that fact. But at the same token, I'm not going to continue to promote them. I'm going to promote me. This is why I don't say Airbnb.
Fair
I say
enough.
I'm in the short-term rental industry, but more importantly, our name says that we don't say short-term rental, we say vacation rentals.
Yep.
We have, and I'm going to talk about going vertical in a second, but we're Dream Vacation and Vacation Rentals by PMI, right? So we're in that industry. But now let's talk about some of the stuff that's going to happen in 2025 and in the future. And I'm not sure, are you up to date with what Airbnb's projections are and their winter release and all that? Do you know if we talk about that? Do you know what I'm going to be asking you?
Yep, pretty good bit.
Okay, so there's a couple of things that I want to talk about real quick. And that is Airbnb's vision for the future. Now, Airbnb wants to go vertical. They want to be the Amazon of travel, right? If I don't know if you're aware, but Uber also wants to do the same thing.
Oh,
In
yeah.
fact, Uber tried to buy out Expedia, and Expedia, turn it down, but they want to go vertical as well. So what's your thought process on Airbnb's decision to go vertical, and how do you think it's going to affect you and I in the short-term rental world? Now, more specifically me, because I don't think you're in the management business, but I'm in the management business.
Yeah.
So how do you think that's going to affect hosts that are in the management business, and then hosts that are like yourself, investors within the short-term rental world?
I definitely have seen that trend tremendously. I even did a story not long ago about Uber trying to explore buying Expedia. And it's still it has never been reported, but usually when there's smoke, there's fire. But I think and I agree with you completely on the Airbnb side. There's definitely some negatives. They definitely are not host will say oh, they don't care about the host. Guests will say, oh, they don't care about the guest, because, they have to find that weird middle ground between people, and they end up making themselves happy, which is what they're supposed to do as a business. So, I hope that with, they've tried that before, where they try to do other things, with their co-host network now, and they're really trying to tap into experiences and basically adding on, you can add on, we want to be the one-stop shop if you want to add on a dinner catered or a massage, mobile masseuse coming or something. I hope that they don't lose vision of what they do best, which is provide a really good soft technology platform for people to book these type of stays that blows out, booking.com and all these other ones, just their software, and their app and everything like that, just hands down is the easiest for guests and probably hosts to use, because I have my own gripes with them, but Vrbo and booking.com have been nightmares for a lot of people on my side. But in the host space, I think, I can't stress enough, and I'm, you having that many units, one is amazing too. So congrats on that. But I'm sure you've seen it from a side, you cultivating your own direct booking platform, your own marketing list, your own email list, people that is going to be the game changer for people that are property managers or have more properties, even for myself as a smaller operator, because we're able to control the guest experience from beginning to end. And also, I hate using this word, but we own the customer of sorts. We have their data, we can market back to them, we can bring them back in to our properties, and it's much easier than Airbnb. You're always going to be competing with everybody else that's out there. So I think that the opportunity really lies in, I hope Airbnb doesn't struggle with this as they try to expand more and lose sight of what they're good at, and then start, chasing too many, squirrels to where they kind of, start falling off even more on the things that they, excel at. But I'm hoping that all property managers, or that people that are trying to build portfolios, are utilizing their own direct marketing, their own social media, their own, and really cultivating that guest experience. And when I say guest experience, it starts the second they're on your website or the second they interact with you too. So you need to have an amazing customer service team, have an amazing, systems and operations built out that are going to be able to walk them through each single step of being at your property until they leave, that they thought the experience was so good that they tell people by word of mouth, which is the best source of marketing anybody can have going forward, because it's hard to build trust into people now, especially with, some people don't trust Airbnb. Some people, there's different reasons why they may not trust an operator, but the bigger you can build up your database and really provide that experience to where people market you for free and you don't even have to build that trust within somebody that's looking to book with you, that's definitely the way things are going. And then being able to expand your own services. I think people should take a page out of Airbnb's book and trying to, add, they add the experiences. One thing we've done successfully at our place is adding on some extra packages, working with, like we work with a local company that makes like charcuterie boards and things. We work with a company that does decorations, and we bring them into our ecosystem. We control the guest experience, and that same guest, the ROI keeps increasing because we're able to, piggyback on these extra things that allow our, operations to fully be, developed, that we can, house all of this in one ecosystem. But it takes some time and effort. And, I worry sometimes that I am trying to like stretch myself a little too thin, and I still need to focus on what we do really well. And so it's kind of a tough question to answer, but I see all the other sites doing it. Like, as far as like Vrbo is really trying to take on as many things as they can. Booking.com is trying to be the all-encompassing, like, hey, you want a hotel, you want a car, you want a flight, you want a unique stay. Like, I see a lot of people doing that. So I don't think, it'll be interesting to see who is able to, I don't want to say come out on top, because I don't think any of those sites are going anywhere anytime soon. But one of them, I think, is going to do it really well and is really going to maximize the opportunities out there for hosts and operators. But the biggest opportunity is growing your own database and understanding that your marketing and your guest experience from beginning to end is really what's going to set you apart and set you up for, to keep growing and for, years to come of success, basically.
No, 100%. I 100% agree with what you just said, right? And I think this is, like, I'm okay with Airbnb wanting to go vertical because they've done their core job really well. So I'm a big fan, and I always tell my clients, you have to focus on one thing and one thing only. Mm-hmm. Once you have that established, and only then can you start exploring going vertical. So I use myself as an example. When I started my company, and it's funny because you talked about this as well a little bit, but when I started my company, for 2 years, I made zero money. I lost money for 2 straight years, right? And people are like, "Oh, you're crazy. You should quit. You're losing your ass on this business." They're not telling me that anymore. But I was in that same position, right? But I focused on one thing. As I started to grow, as my process and procedures started to get better, once I had everything solid, then I started to go vertical. Then I bought my cleaning company. I started the cleaning company. Then once that went really well and that was on autopilot, then I went with the landscaping company. And then I went with a travel agency, then pest control. So then we started to expand and go vertical, but only after we did everything and our primary business, and it's still our primary business, that takes priority. Everything else is secondary. And I think Airbnb is going to do a good job with that.
I hope so.
They've learned from from past experiences. When they first launched experiences, it failed.
Yeah, it's bad.
So, and they're bringing it back. So I think they're going to do. I think they're learning their lesson, and I think they're going to do well. And I think it's okay for them to go vertical. Yeah. But I think the main reason why they have to go vertical is because, and you're not going to be in this boat, but people like myself, these mom and pop operators that currently it's more than 80% of properties on Airbnb are managed and operated by mom and pop operators. You're going to see less and less of that because of regulation. I mean, look at Paris, look at New York, Portugal, not Portugal, Lisbon, Barcelona.
Yep.
These are
New
all
York.
cities.
Hmm.
New York. Now, I think New York is. I don't know if you saw um, the Shift interview with Brian Chesky.
Oh yeah.
That so New York, I think it's going to uh, uh, readdress their ban. I think they're going to bring it back because they realize that it was BS from the
We'll
beginning. But
see. We'll see. I'm waiting to see how they feel about that.
yeah, yeah, we're gonna see. We'll see what happens there. But I do have some inside knowledge that uh,
Nice.
the city, the commissioners there are readdressing this, and they're Brian's lobbyists and all that. They're doing a good job there. But anyways, that's we'll see what happens there. Um, but I agree. And then the last thing I'll say, and then you kind of touch on it, is I'm a firm believer that you never should stop growing, because if you're not growing, you're dying.
Hmm.
But it has to be a controlled growth, right?
Yep.
You cannot grow too quickly. And then I'll raise my hand because we did this. For us. It happened in 2021. In 2021, we went from a $2 to $3 million grossing business to almost a $14 million business, but we
Wow.
lost focus. It was
Hmm.
just chaotic. It was just
Yeah.
way too much stuff. We had to take a step back, right? And take a step back to take a step forward. But anyways, let me close with this one last question, and that is, what advice would you give someone new in this industry?
I think it's kind of there's probably a few steps to that question, but the one piece of advice is figure out what your end goal you want is. Everybody's end goal is different. Because that leads, and it sounds like such a simple thing to say, but not everybody may want to build up an empire of sorts like if you have. They may be, like maybe they just want a couple properties or something, or they do want to build that empire, and those steps that you take to get to that point are going to be dictated very early on in your journey. And then it doesn't, I highly recommend trying things, because you may think you want something and then you kind of start messing with it and you're like, actually, that's not like fully, like where I want to go. But figure out what exactly, 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line, whatever number you want to put on it, figure out what you would be happy with having come out of your next 10 years or something along those lines, because that's going to dictate your journey. Because there's so many, even in Airbnb or short-term rentals, vacation rentals, whatever words you want to use, there's so many different opportunities within it that might work better for you. There's, the glamping side. There's also business travel. There's also, people that do co-hosting only and they crush it with co-hosting. There's people that do rental arbitrage, which nothing I've done, but people do amazing there. There's so many different facets in it, and so I know a guy that he makes $100K a year income and he has one property, and he works his W-2 job and he has one property. And that's it, and he loves it. And that's all he wanted. And then I know people like yourself and people that have built massive businesses around it, and they are doing amazing, but that's like what they wanted. And so you don't always have to get caught up in the glitz and glamour and what the next person is doing. If you compare yourself to the other people, you're always going to be behind. So worry about yourself, figure out what your end goal is. And then every single day, one of my rules for myself, and I actually got this from Mr. Beast when he talks about his videos and things, is every single day you need to try to get 1% better. And it doesn't, like, you don't need to grow that empire in 2 days. If every single day you're improving by 1%, and this is my case, I've had my case exactly, because I've had, because of my YouTube channel and other things, I've had people bring me opportunities to go, hey, let's partner on the glamping site. Let's do this. Like, what do you think about this? You want to partner with me? And I've said no to a lot of things because I know I don't want to stretch myself too thin while I'm learning these things that I am. But now that I'm 2 or 3 years in this particular niche, I feel more confident now, and I'm ready to take on some of those things. And I probably could have done it a year ago, but I had different goals, and me also holding back, it actually led to me getting almost a dream job for me working at Bigger Pockets, because I was able to tap into different parts and learn like different nuances of what I wanted to do that made me happy, which was helping people and teaching them the real side of this. And that was one of my end goals. I like educating, and I like being like, which is one thing why I love the content you have and things, is we're very honest about these things. Like, we're saying this is not an easy journey, and you're not going to instantly put up a property and make $50,000 and never work a day, like, so but everybody's goal is different. So it's really just like a roundabout way to put it is, be honest with yourself. Know that there's going to be some hard work that comes in anything that has a reward to it. Nothing is easy that is going to be, rewarding in the end. And figure out in 10 years what kind of thing you would like to build, and go try out some things before you fully dive into it, before you go spend a ton of money on a glamping site, or go buy some big vacation rental, in Colorado or something. Like, really try out some of these things and learn it. Don't get analysis paralysis for too long, but I would caution to the side of like, you're overanalyzing as opposed to just going in blindly and thinking everything's going to be, rainbows and sunshine.
I love that advice. Great advice. And I really don't have too much more to add to that, other than the fact that, like I said, a controlled growth. My dog wanted to jump in.
Hey, I love
Hi,
pups.
Connie.
So I put my dog up. We could have had a little moment, but my dog's a little crazy. She's a puppy, so she would have been wilding out the whole time.
But anyways, Garrett, this has been an incredible conversation. Like you said in the beginning, we can probably talk for hours.
Easily.
If I would be honored if sometime in the near future we can hop on another, because there's so much more I want to get into that we didn't have time to get into. But thank you for sharing your journey, your strategies, your wisdom with us. So before we wrap up, please let our listeners know where they can find you.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at Garrett Brown RE. Is my Instagram name, or jump over at biggerpockets.com anytime. And I'm always in the forums, and we're building out a pretty cool short-term rental ecosystem over there. And we'd love to have anybody come over and chat. And I love interacting. Anything short-term rentals. I can talk all day about this type of things.
All right, brother. I'm going to have all his information in the description down below, his website, his Instagram, all that stuff. So if you didn't get to write it down, don't worry about it. It'll be in the show notes. I love you guys. If you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. If you want to have a conversation with me, buy me a coffee. Love you guys. See you on the next one.